Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast, your Fulham podcast from down under. Here today with Lean Stocks, just Skibby and myself. How are you, Skibby?
Yeah, I'm all good. We've drawn the short straw. Clearly, nobody wanted to talk about this
Ah,
game, but
very
unfortunately, it's down to us.
incredibly creative excuses they all came up with. Oh, side project,
I
got to
suppose.
complete. Leaving leaving town. I think Dave left the country for six hours or so. And
I feel bad
yeah.
for him. If I was at the stadium yesterday, I don't think I'd want to resurface for a long time. So, the benefit of the doubt
Oh,
goes to Dave, but the other boys, you let everyone down. So,
yeah, totally. Well, let's talk about. We're here.
oh,
Obviously here to talk about the London derby, the forgettable London derby that was yesterday against Brentford, a 0-0 affair, which regrettably didn't need to be so. There were some opportunities. There really were some opportunities, and it feels like we should have come away with more than the point we did. Um,
yeah,
I honestly expected this to be a much more combative, really competitive game, but it kind of
it didn't
didn't
feel
feel
like it,
like
did
it
it?
was. Not at all, not at all. And so it was I was a bit confused in the end because if I think back to the first time we met these guys, we didn't come away with anything at all, but it was a pretty intense game, and this game just didn't have it at all. What are you thinking, Skibby? And I'm not going to interview you on this
No,
conversation.
no, no. Let's have a
We're going to chat. We're going to chat.
We'll have a
But
chat. Yeah.
what are you thinking? Where did this all go wrong?
Oh, the boys are on the beach. I know we touched upon it. I mean, if there was one thing that gave me the impression that the boys didn't really want to know was Willian. Like
Oh,
I have never seen him give the ball away. I think was it 6 times in the first half alone. Just where he did the right thing, which was what he normally did, which was get the ball down, go to take on his man, cut back, bring others into play. And he would get to the point of bringing others into play, and it would just go straight to a Brentford player. And you're just thinking,
I mean,
that is so
it was,
wasteful.
but it was just so uncharacteristic. It was
Very
weird.
much.
I mean, it was so far off his best. It was not funny. And if he did that once in a game, for a guy who's such a skillful passer
Mm,
and with such good vision, these passes were not just a bit off; they were wildly off, like
really off.
wildly off. It was very difficult. It almost felt um, like he was recovering from a flu and had a fuzzy head. It was just like he wasn't there.
No,
Um,
absolutely. And
really
when he's
surprising.
not, and as we've seen this season, when Willian isn't on it, there's very few that can step up and sort
Mm,
of be that creative spark for us. And I think that's potentially where we struggled. But I mean, look, Brentford weren't good. I think that's one of the main sort of takeaways from this game. But we were just as equally bad. I think. I mean, there was like glimmers of hope. I think Iwobi Pereira had played some sort of nice work on the right hand side, and Iwobi had a few shots, but there was a few elements where you could clearly see that Iwobi was not on his game, not really full of confidence. His shooting was, straight at the goalkeeper. I don't know whether it was
mm,
just against his game where he was sort of getting the opportunity to cut inside quite a lot, and then he'd have to shoot with his weak foot, but which just looked
yeah.
terrible. But there was, I mean, everyone for me, I think we played our strongest 11, which was very clear. Lukic in the middle, he was very far up the pitch, which I liked. Finally we were sort of seeing a position where Lukic could take a sort of a stronghold on the game, which was like you almost kind of had a diagonal three in the centre midfield. You kind of had Pereira, Lukic, and then Palhinha. And Lukic that far up the pitch has a lot more impact on the game for me. And he was sort of picking out some passes. He got into the box at one point. I was like, bloody hell, we've got a centre mid in the
Mm,
box for once. Um,
mm,
and I thought, the sluggish start, but we could grow into the game, and we started to grow into the game, but we just really lacked that real intensity, which, like you say, you didn't get from a West London derby, especially as apparently as rivalries go. This one is quite a strong rivalry between Fulham and Brentford, but I didn't see that. I just saw a couple of teams who didn't have anything to play for. It was almost like, I think the preseason friendly we had in America against Brentford was more intense than this game. But I think, and there is a key thing that a lot of people talk about, which is we build up from the back, Tosin with his, high risk sort of passes and build up from the right hand side, and potentially you don't get that with Diop. I thought he was fantastic defensively, but going forward and trying to get the ball out and playing the way that we play, we kind of lack that with Diop. And you know what? I don't blame Diop in the slightest. I think you just can't expect to come back in after having such a long time out and then going into a game and expect it to be 100%. He's going to grow into that position. Whether we have the patience to allow him to, that's another story. But I thought defensively, Bassi and Diop were fantastic.
Absolutely.
But they were just put under so much pressure just from the really crap passing in front of them. And I think there was one where Willian gave it away and Mbuemo was in.
Oh.
Bassi got back and deflected it onto the bar.
So
fantastic block. But Jesus.
I thought that was in, actually. I actually thought that was in.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. It was the smallest of deflections, but geez. I wanted to talk about that, actually, too. In all of this sort of dreariness, I thought Bassi and Diop actually had a pretty good game. And as you say, there are elements of Diop's game which we would, I was going to say rather he didn't have, but we wish he had certain elements which he just doesn't. But as a defender yesterday, I thought he did really, really well. And ask yourself how often and how much of a threat was Tony yesterday? It barely at all. So he did a good job. I think both of them did a good job on Tony.
I loved the fact that sort of Diop was just like Ivan Toney barely had a chance to sort of turn. I think Diop was really kind of took a leaf out of Bassi's book, just really aggressive on the first touch, trying to intercept. And I think there was a moment where Diop sort of got in front of Tony, carried the ball forward, and I think he even lost it on the edge of Brentford's area, but then managed to win it back and play it off to Pereira. And I thought that is kind of like the high risk, high reward defending that Marco likes. And I thought that was a really good sort of moment of play. And Tony, if you're going for, I mean, I was going to touch on this later on, but I mean, seeing as we've mentioned him, he's been singing, I want to be champion, play in the Champions League. I want to play for Arsenal. I want to do this. I want to do that. And he hasn't scored in 10 Premier League games. I didn't see anything yesterday that shows me that he's going to go to that level. I mean, has he somehow managed to put his foot in it? I mean, if I was Arsenal or one of the top four sides, would I really be in for a striker who's, 0 for 10 in the Premier League at the moment, and not scoring?
I don't think you're getting away with that. You can't be considered to be a top striker, even in the worst side. The very best of them just don't stop scoring goals. They find a way. And,
absolutely.
And I think
it'd be quite funny if he comes with his tail between his legs and says, "Yeah, all that stuff I said before, I was joking, so I'm going to stay." But...
Can you actually imagine that? I can never imagine the guy even feigning sort of humility. I just can't see it myself. But well, let's talk about the bright spots. As you said, I think Pereira and Iwobi were trying. There were a lot of things just not coming off. We just couldn't string passes together, and you're never going to get anywhere if that's how it's going for you. I thought Mooney's tried hard. I thought Mooney's actually did a few pretty good things. Actually, again, some of his layoffs, some of his passes were really, really quite beautiful. And I don't want to jump forward quite that far yet, but I'm
Hmm.
struggling to think of anything that's really exciting to talk about. But yeah, he was very unlucky for me to be taken off, and it almost felt
Yeah.
like um, Marco felt he wanted to try something, needed to do something to win the game, but it did feel like, let's talk about that in a minute. But geez, it did feel like he picked the wrong guy there because
Mm.
I don't I was trying to work out whether when once I realised that he was going to be substituted, and it took a little while before they actually made the change. I was trying to work out whether he was injured or not, or whether he was cooked, and it
Mm.
didn't look like either. So it just looked like a tactical change that was made. But yeah. Anyway, what can we talk about in that first half of that's even remotely promising or exciting? I mean, I think I
We
do
had some
remember
long shots.
Iwobi had, I think he had two shots on goal, and one of them was absolutely straight to the keeper.
Yeah.
Um, how many other shots did we have that I can't even remember, to be honest?
I
Um,
think Pereira had a couple of his little pot shots over the bar. I think a really loose header from Muniz with not much power on it.
yeah,
I
but it
think there
was
was
yeah,
it was kind of more what we've seen before, which is, you know, if the delivery into Muniz isn't great, then there's not much else we can do. And I think we just struggled to get that final ball. I think, you know what, I'll give some credit to Brentford that I thought that they defended the crosses quite well. I thought there was elements, not being too mean to Muniz, but I think there were elements where he could have perhaps got across his man a bit better, which we've seen in the past. But I think if you're feeding off scraps and you're really not knowing, because I think a lot of the crosses for me were coming, like Willian wasn't on it, let's be honest. And I think a lot of the crosses for me were coming from Iwobi, and they're not the best, if I'm honest. They're just one of those kind of hit and hope, get it in the mixer, and I think he doesn't find a real pinpoint cross to find where Muniz is. I think Muniz has got to do a lot of anticipation of where this ball's going to go, which I think was really kind of summing up our attacking play and our lack of threat, as it were, in the third, in the final third. But it was just very scrappy, no real sort of intent and sort of putting our foot on the ball to actually say, right, this is going where Muniz is, and I know where he's going to be. We were kind of missing that kind of telepathy that we've seen in the past.
mm. Let's pick up on something that Steve Reynolds, following along on the live stream, has commented on. He said Andreas is often too selfish, and rather than pass the ball, he shoots. What do you think about that? I mean, I don't mind my number 10 getting in and having a shot, even if it's because he's got a shot on him. He's definitely got a shot
Mm.
on him. What do you think about that comment?
I think it's quite harsh, if I'm honest. I think
You
Andreas,
listen to that, Steve?
you're quite harsh there, Steve. I think he, like yesterday, he was passing on more often than not. I think, um, like I think the 1-2 with Iwobi comes to mind. There was a moment where he I think he picked the ball up from Diop, as I mentioned, and he got the ball out of his feet, but he instead looked for Willian and Robinson out wide. But I think, yeah, his shooting hasn't been fantastic from long range. But I think I don't mind him having the shots. But I think for us, that Andreas is probably one of those. I mean, the key passes that speak for themselves. He's created the most chances for Fulham. I think outside or created the most chances for Fulham is one thing, but creating the most chances outside the top six um, is another. And I think it shows that he is bringing those people into play, but they're probably not the most prolific of goal scorers and seem to sort of lose that. But I think for me, he does enough. But the distance shooting looks worse than it actually is. I don't mind him having a pot shot for once or twice in a game. I think I'd be more concerned if he wasn't shooting. And I think that's what we're seeing with Iwobi is if you're not taking that shot, which I guess he did, but they were both quite low confidence shots. Like he didn't try to go across the goalkeeper. He just sort of tried to put something on it and get it towards goal. Whereas I think Pereira, at least he's sort of trying showing the confidence of trying to sort of curl something into the top, and he's looking for those corners. He's not just getting it towards goal and see how it goes.
Yeah. Look, I think I think there might be something in that. I feel your frustration, Steve, but I think on a day when there were an awful lot of players had very, very ordinary games, you're possibly being a bit harsh there, because I don't think he had the worst game out of the 11 by a long shot. But fight me if you will, if you will. Yeah, I mean, I actually thought Willian was fortunate to actually come out after half time. It was that bad.
Yeah, it was. It was probably the worst I've seen. Actually, I'd say it was the worst performance of any Fulham player this season. I'd put it that
way. It was just so off that there must be something behind it. It's just he looked like his age, and he looked like the kind of greatest fear that a lot of people probably have about him still being in the squad. That maybe he's just beyond it, mate. He just looked so bad. But he was also very frustrated. He kind of had his head in his hands a few times. I don't think he could quite believe what was coming off his boot. And they weren't just like missed passes; they were into dangerous areas as well, which kind of suggests that it wasn't just poor execution, but just not thinking straight. Strange.
I think it's strange to sort of think about. If I go back to the time where Willian was like one of our best players on the pitch, and Anthony Robinson was getting linked to top 4 teams because of his unbelievable athleticism. Like that goes back to me to Tottenham at home, which was a long time ago. And since then, we've just not had any I haven't seen the same sort of intensity from those sort of players who are our game and our match winners. It's almost as if they've all just kind of, taken the foot off the pedal and just not really, just coasting now.
Oh no! Don't mute your dog, Skibby. We need some intelligent commentary here.
Yeah, he's arguing. He's a massive Anthony Robinson fan, so he's not happy that I'm slating him. So
I thought Robinson had some moments, some pretty decent moments yesterday. Actually, there was one moment. Go on.
No, I was going to say. I mean, you're more than welcome to say the most, but I think it's just we saw elements of where he can fly down the wing, pick out a cross. Spurs comes to mind, but I just didn't see the same level of intensity and the same sort of aggression, I guess, is probably the key. The key that I love about Anthony Robinson's game, but to sort of try and keep Mbeumo quiet is a real task on its own. So I guess I give him some credit there. But no, go ahead. The moment you were talking.
No. Actually, the best moment of all, which is a fast forward, and I feel like we almost need to get to the subs because that's kind of when things started to happen for us. Let's jump forward. 64th minute. Looking at my notes here, Jimenez replaces Bunez, which.
Baffling.
I get Marco trying to just do something to have an impact on the game, but I thought it was a really terrible decision to take him off. And certainly Jimenez, we'll come to that in a minute. But whilst, yeah, sure, he probably deserves a run. What a terrible decision to bring him on. He had a pretty terrible 15 or 20 minutes, didn't he? And then Traore comes on for Willian, which was actually a pretty good move. And for once, Traore was actually given a reasonable amount of time. And I think he's probably proved that he deserves even more time, and he's probably been a bit hard done by. And I'll just jump forward here. 75th minute, Tom Kearney replaces Sasa Lukic, and Bobby Decordova-Reid replaces Pereira. And then obviously at the 90th minute, Harry Wilson comes on for Iwobi. But can we just go back and talk about Jimenez? What's going on? What is going on?
I think he was just giving him some minutes towards the end of the season. I think that's all it was. I mean, for me, if you're going to give a striker a run out, then Broja is the obvious choice. A similar level of athleticism, level of pace. I think there was times in the first half where Fulham broke with the ball, whether it be Pereira, Iwobi, bearing down on goal, and really strange. Like Muniz just made the wrong runs for me. Not to really slate it, but I think there was elements where he could start pulling defenders left and right, and start creating those channels for Iwobi and Pereira to keep running into. But he just seemed to stay central and didn't really know where to go. And I thought that was a bit of an interesting moment. But and then part of me was thinking, Broja in those situations, potentially a more experienced, especially in the Premier League, could, make those more intelligent runs and start finding that space. But Jimenez, for me, isn't that player to run in behind. So it didn't really make sense that he would have been the right choice to bring on. But, I think for me, it was just Marco wanting to get minutes in the legs just because it's coming to the end of the season. They're not playing for anything at the moment, and that's just how it is, I think. But I mean, it wasn't the best. I give Muniz the benefit of the doubt. I think he didn't really get the service, but I also don't think it was his best game for us. I think there were elements where I just thought, oh, that could have been a bit better, or that he can learn to sort of make more intelligent runs. But I think that will come in time. But yeah, Jimenez wouldn't have been my choice.
And to be fair, the commentator who really annoys me on the stream we normally get,
Tony Gale.
Tony Gale. I really do not enjoy listening
Former
to
Fulham captain, though. Show some respect.
Look, I don't enjoy his commentary, and he's actually not that favourable towards. He's actually quite harsh towards Fulham.
Yeah, he is.
I know he tries to be. Yeah, I guess he's trying to be fair and impartial, but it just makes annoying comments. Sort of patronising, annoying comments. But one comment that I think your kind may be referring to is a salient comment that he did make was somewhat constructively criticising Muniz for his rawness and his naivety in some of the runs he makes. Not so much running into space, but actually drawing players away and creating space for others behind him. Because there was one time, particularly I remember when I think Pereira was behind him, and if he'd made a run, it would have given Pereira quite a lot of room. And yeah, I mean, like you say, I think probably just wasn't his best game. And again, I think it would be unfair for us to overly focus on Muniz because he certainly wasn't the worst out there.
No, but give him a preseason and a structured squad that we know that we're going to go forward with. Then I think those things come. I think the fact that we've sort of thrown him into sort of the season and expected things to work, and it just has. There's not a lot you can do week by week because when you're more focused on the sort of the game at hand rather than sort of the ideology that you want to play and the philosophy. So I think give him a full preseason as our number 9, and how we're going to be sort of breaking forward. I think we'll start to see better results, if I'm honest. But I mean, you talk about the commentary. You got to love the fact that they thought they were at Craven Cottage for about 3 or 4 times. I think I saw. But
how did Gale not come back from that? You'd think he'd know better. Anyway,
unless they were just wishing and hoping that they weren't at the G-Tech, I suppose.
One thing that Steve Reynolds once again has actually put a note out here, and I was going to mention it because to me that was actually a highly enjoyable moment in the game where Brentford broke down the middle of the pitch, and it looked like we were in serious trouble. And I can't remember who actually was on the ball. It wasn't in Wemo, was it? I can't
I
remember
think
the
it was either
moment.
him or Visser.
Yeah, yeah, I can't remember.
Pacey winger, let's put it that way.
Yeah, and he had a couple of yards. He had a couple of yards spare, but he actually, for his unfortunately, had Robinson and Adama behind him, and it was absolutely brilliant to watch them reel the guy in, and actually nick the ball off him. Which,
Yeah.
when are you ever going to actually get two guys that quick behind you for that to happen? It was very, very entertaining. Again, I have to say that I thought I thought Adama looked pretty good
He
actually.
looked good.
He looked very, very up for it. He was very combative. He used his body beautifully. Still don't think we put enough balls in behind to let him run onto it. We still don't seem to play to that cheat that he has. And yeah, go on.
But we do when he's not on the pitch.
Come on.
It baffles me, right? Because we saw another one yesterday, which was the Muniz get the ball out of his feet, turn, swivel, and a ping over the
Yep.
top for Iwobi. Imagine doing that to Adama. You'd be.
Oh.
I mean, no attacker would be able to keep up with him for the cross, so he'd have to do it all himself. But I mean, yeah, you just don't seem to see that sort of style of play when Adama's on the pitch. I don't know why it is, but no. But I can sense where we're going. We're slowly edging towards a fantastic Adama cross, aren't we?
But to be fair to the guy, I mean, there are a couple of moments where he's got a strong boot on him, both left and right foot. And I never realized he had such a good left foot actually, till a few weeks ago when he unleashed one, which was, it had some force behind it. And I don't mind that. I don't mind some of those crosses. He really smashes them into the 6-yard box. Now, doesn't always get them into the right area, but it's got a lot more sort of, it's a lot more potent than those balls that we often get in from Iwobi or,
Yeah.
other players. So for me, he has kind of fought against these very, very few minutes that he's got. I don't know that he's made a massive case, to start against other players that we have, but giving him 5 minutes is a joke, and it's really unfair on the guy to actually expect him to come on and turn the game around and score a goal or create something remarkable in 5 minutes. It's just a difficult thing to do. And I kind of feel like we're willing the club to invest in even higher class wingers, which I suppose puts Adama a bit further down the pecking order if that were to happen. But in the event that our wingers aren't really doing the business, you wonder why he's not being given an opportunity to start. I genuinely think he's earned it, because every time he's come on, the last 3 or 4 times he's come on, he's done nothing wrong and everything to actually enhance his reputation. That's an awkward moment. I think I've lost Skibby. Skibby, are you there from outer space? No, I think I've lost him. Well, here we go. It's just me. So yeah, I mean, Tom Kearney for Sasa Lukic. I thought, I don't think, I don't think Lukic was having the worst game. And as Skippy mentioned, he did do some interesting things and find himself in the right areas of the pitch earlier on in the game. But I guess it was at the point of proceedings where Tom Kearney, we may as well have given him a go. It was all a bit late for Tom. He didn't have that much of an influence on the game. I mean, he only had 15 or so minutes. but I didn't think he was terrible. I didn't think he was amazing. Um, Bobby Decordova Reed again. I don't think Bobby really had much influence on the game at all. Um, I guess Pereira was taken off mainly because he'd pretty much done all he could have possibly done in the game. Um, that's okay, Skippy. Was that some sort of joke exit there? Just to leave me on my own. It was quite interesting actually.
Do you know what? I just wanted to leave you in a monologue about Adama because just you're in your element. So I thought,
Look, I wouldn't say Adama is my favourite player, but I've kind of grown to feeling that he deserves a better run. William's the name on my back,
yeah,
but yeah,
no,
I'm just talking about the other substitutions. Lukic or Tom Kenny for Lukic, which I thought was
yeah,
meh.
yeah. It wasn't
Tom
fantastic, but
he didn't do anything wrong, but it
no,
just was ineffective. And BDR for Pereira again, didn't do
100
anything
was it his
wrong. But
100th Premier League appearance for BDR, I think, as well. So well done, Bobby.
yeah,
That's
no,
a lot more
yeah,
than I expected, if I'm honest, in the nicest possible way. But no, I think going back to the sort of Adama stuff, I think could he be someone that we could utilize against Man City? Like leave somebody really pacey up because Man City are going to flood everybody forward. Long ball out, you got an out ball to Adama. That's probably something that I'd rather have than Iwobi, if I'm honest. Um, and that could be
I
something
mean,
that could
why
damage if
not?
you really wanted it.
I mean,
Yeah,
why
go for
not?
it.
That would be so disruptive. They
Mm,
probably wouldn't be thinking that we're going to do that. They probably think, "Oh no, Fulham are going to put their best 11 out and be very respectful." Fuck it, just pull something crazy like that
mm,
and just totally disrupt them and make them think. And you're probably going to buy yourself 10 minutes into the game
yeah,
where we'd be under so much pressure, but it'd just be a bit chaotic. And I don't care who you are, you're gonna struggle. You're gonna be looking over your shoulder if Adama's anywhere near you, and
yeah,
he's the kind of player who he can embarrass the very best purely because you can't catch him if he gets past
mm,
you.
yeah,
And he's obviously I don't often see him use his strength. It's normally his speed that you're sort of looking to,
mm.
but clearly he's a big boy and he's very strong. And I loved him brushing aside whoever that was that he brushed aside yesterday. Do you remember
Might
that?
have been Pinnock. Was it Pinnock? I think it.
Well, Pinnock
Well,
was on that side, but I don't recall it being Pinnock. It might have been, but he
but
brushed him aside and he got
for
his
the
cross
Jimenez
in.
chance, is that?
Yes, yes,
Yeah, I
yeah.
suppose we'll have to talk about that, won't we?
Come on, then let's do it. Tell me about it. Walk me through it. Walk me through how you, with a blindfold and a paper bag over your head, could have done better.
Yeah,
What was
exactly.
he
I would
thinking?
have preferred Leno in that situation. I think it was just everything
Is
about it was just get it on target, take a touch,
is
take your time.
is, is that a man who loves to grandstand? Is it a man who is just so desperate to score because he's had such an awful season, and well, four of them actually. Um,
Mm.
or is that just a absolute brain failure? He expects so much more from him
Well,
because he's an experienced striker. Even if you're not actually at your top, you'd expect composure.
I wouldn't say awful season. I think that would be a little harsh. I mean, he did go through a spell where it was quite prolific. I think the Arsenal goal was great. The goals against Nottingham Forest, like if I'm honest, that's one of my goals of the season. Is that the chest down, Olaina, see you later, floors him round the keeper, back heel. Oh, that was
Mm,
fantastic.
mm,
And I think the injury just came at a wrong time, and I think that's probably a fair assessment of his season. That injury came at the wrong time. Mooney stepped up. Now he can get back in the side, and that's such unfortunate. But there are things where I see people talk about, oh, he's sort of low on confidence, or not necessarily match fit. But I see the opposite. It was a very casual. He thought he'd scored, in my eyes. The way that he stepped up to take that first time as well showed me a confident striker who was just too casual with it. Didn't make sure that he got it away. And I think that
That is
was
true.
probably more, harmful than actually having a low confident or a striker low on confidence. Because I think Muniz buries that, Pereira buries that. I think there is a lot of players in midfield who would at least get it on target. But to take it first time over the bar, and it summed up the day for me. It just really did. A casual, no one really cares kind of shot to sum up a no one really cares kind of game.
You
And
make a good
yeah,
point there, though, Skibby. You make a good point because someone who was very low on confidence might have trapped that, had
take a
three
touch.
touches, which he had time to do, and then kind of hit it straight at the keeper because he didn't have the confidence to put it in a corner, right? But he's
Mm.
gone first time on his left foot, which I don't think is that good. Um, hence the so many Rabonas. But um, maybe you're absolutely right that there was a kind of hubris, extreme confidence there that he actually saw an open goal, hit it first time, and thought this is an absolute
This is
winner.
in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
then
it
kind of
would have been the winner. I didn't see enough from Brentford to worry me.
yeah.
And I think that's just the takeaway is we should have won that game from that chance, but we didn't. And that's just down to the casualness of Jimenez.
Mm,
And I mean, just sort of shows why, you know, he doesn't do. It's just his work ethic, I think, just doesn't sit right with me as well. Maybe we've been spoiled with the work ethic of Mitrovic and Muniz in recent times, but he just swans about and tries to get the odd flick. The amount of times he tried a bloody back heel, I can't remember what game it was, but it was before he started scoring. But I was sitting there in the Putney end just watching him try these back heels, which were to no one. And you're like, just take a touch, do the simple stuff. And it's like when, depending on whether you sort of watch sort of like youth football, but it's like watching a kid trying to do all the stuff he's watched on Match of the Day that the previous night or whatever. And you're like, just do the simple stuff. Stop doing all these
mm,
flicks and tricks and stupid crap because it doesn't work. And then one will work, and then he just carries on doing it, and you're just getting. That's one of my frustrations with Jimenez, is that
mm.
he's
No, I
a
couldn't agree
flair
more.
player, but he's not a flair player. He thinks he's a flair player, and there are some
Mm.
elements that come off. But I mean, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't work, and it's frustrating to watch. And he doesn't really bring much to the team. And then that was the icing on the cake, was just blazing it over the bar and in a game which the fans would have loved to get one over on Brentford, of course.
I think my feeling is that his wage, alleged wage, has always bothered me at 100K. If that's
Mm.
actually what we're paying him, wow. I get the context that at the time when we signed him, we just lost Mitrovic. We needed someone, and
Steady the ship type deal.
yeah, they took a chance on him, but it in hindsight it seems very poor value. I know we didn't pay a lot of money for him. Was it 4 or 5 million
Yeah.
pounds? I think, but but the overhang of 100,000 a week, if that's what the number is, seems nuts now. In the context of what we've got, and I just wonder, as the deck has been shuffled by Mooney's appearance or resurgence, however you want to think about it, whether we can really tolerate that going forward. I just, as Steve Reynolds actually puts another question out to us here. It sounds like we've only got Steve Reynolds on the line here, but Steve is coming up with a couple of beauties today. Um, with Birmingham being relegated, if they asked Stansfield if they asked to extend Stansfield on loan for another season, should we say yes or no? He's got to come back, doesn't he?
I
Time
mean,
has cometh.
anywhere but Birmingham, because that club is a mess, and I'm going to say it. I'm glad they went down, because the way that they treated John Eustace, they were sitting sixth in the league. Then they did this whole circus with Tom Brady coming in, as a director, blah blah blah. They were sitting sixth in the championship, overachieving. Stansfield was playing really well, and then they brought in Wayne Rooney and plummeted. And Wayne Rooney didn't play Stansfield very much, and then he got sacked, and and it was too late. The damage was done. And I think that club has shown the values that they hold is not somewhere that we want a developing player to be. But honestly, I would love Stansfield to come back for pre-season, go through the assessment and see if he can be our number 2, number 3 striker. Number 3 striker probably wouldn't benefit him much, because I think you need minutes. If we can't give him minutes, then he needs to get minutes elsewhere. And for me, what I would really love to see is he got an opportunity to go to Ipswich in January, which I'm not sure why it didn't come off, but maybe he stayed because Wayne Rooney got sacked, so he stuck around in Birmingham. But I think if Ipswich come back in for him to be their striker in the Premier League,
oh yeah,
100%, I think that would be probably the best opportunity for him in a team who has a very, very good manager in McKenna. They probably have low expectations. They know they're going to be in a tough season, but if you can get that Premier League experience of playing 38 games in a season, then I'm all for it. And I think that's probably where I can see Stansfield going. I think there's a player that obviously McKenna likes. And I think with those sort of teams in the Premier League, you can't have a Berbatov. You can't have a sort of flair striker who won't do the hard running. And the thing that I've been told about and seen from Stansfield is that he will work his socks off, really try and dig in for the team. And that's probably what you'd want as a striker in Ipswich in the Premier League. So I'd love him to go to Ipswich. Hope that comes off and see the best out of Stansfield. And then he'll come back even more developed and a more complete player, and start to sort of push for that number 9 shirt for Fulham sort of come the 26-27 season. Or wait, 20
yeah. Look,
25.
I tend to agree with you. I mean, if he comes back, I just can't see him actually. The mix doesn't feel right for him to come back as one of our strikers right now. And could he play on the wing for us? I think we need more experienced players. I don't really want that. I think we need more experienced, like next level players. I think that's what we're looking for.
Yeah.
And if Ipswich wanted him, I think that would be fantastic, be perfect, absolute dream signing for him. I would have thought, provided that he actually does, play his fair share of games. If he came in there and just, and they suddenly they've now got promoted, they spent some money, buy themselves a striker, and he's the second striker. That could be a pretty rubbish outcome for him.
Yeah.
But obviously, what you're envisaging is them buying into him being their key man.
Yes.
So yeah, but in my head, I think Raul will be very fortunate to actually still be around next season. I can't see it. What do you think?
No, honestly, no. I think he will probably go back to Mexico or sort of one of the Latin clubs. I think he's just, like you say, he's not a first choice or anywhere sort of in the pecking order for me in a striker situation. Because for me, I think there's going to be the person who replaces Broja, unless it is Broja, I don't know. But at the moment, he sits third choice for me, and I think you can't have a third choice on the money that we're talking here, especially when the money's tight and regulations are coming out left, right, and centre. That we've got the UEFA regulations now, which is you can only spend X amount of your turnover. Then you've got this new one that's coming in, which is the anchoring. It's all really confusing. Hopefully, we've got some financial whiz who's fixing that for us. But it doesn't take somebody with a finance or an economics degree to come in and say your third choice striker on 100k a week is wasting a space in the squad. So I think for me, he has to go.
Yeah, I actually did a little bit of work on this with my very limited knowledge of what the whole squad cost proposed rules are all about. But I did a bit of digging and actually went through this. And it's probably worth a chat some other time. But I and obviously lots of assumptions around this, and it's beyond my my capability to understand exactly where the Mitrovic money actually lands. There seems to be so much debate about where that actually lands and whether it's in or out and whether we've had the benefit of that yet or not. But in looking at the way anchoring works, and I know this is not next season; it's the year after.
It's proposed, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it probably has a fair chance of going through, but I think it's an optimistic. Oh, it's actually quite a positive, potentially positive situation for Fulham. Less so that it actually um, pairs back the teams that are the top four or top six very very wealthy teams or teams that generate a lot of revenue. But from the way I saw it is that I think it could actually give us an opportunity to spend some money if we released a bunch of players that we think probably need to go anyway and sold a bunch of players. I think we'd end up having a lot of money. I don't want to start quoting some of my numbers, but it might be worth having a chat about that at some point in the off season. I think.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, I think from the one last positive from the Brentford game, I would take is the activity we had on the Discord. I think it was really nice to have. I know there was certain elements of people who couldn't get tickets and therefore had to find their own means of watching the game, whatever that may be. But the engagement that we had of people discussing the game and giving their thoughts and just general debates about how we can improve and things like that, it was really good to have the activity on the Discord. And so I want to thank everyone who sort of came along and sort of gave us their thoughts and had a bit of a chat. Made it more entertaining, if I'm honest. The chat was more entertaining than the game itself. So so thanks for everyone who came along to the Discord. But if you weren't in the Discord, why not get in, join us for the next game and join the community? It's all good fun.
Yeah, I'm glad you reminded me because I should have actually mentioned that a little earlier on. But yeah, there's been a lot of activity. I think we picked up a bunch of new members, and it's growing nicely. And people seem to be contributing in a really healthy way. And as you said, we had a cheeky live stream last night, which hopefully was helpful to a lot of people who couldn't get tickets. And yeah, it was a very very enjoyable chat. I want to say that perhaps the most impactful and dramatic thing that happened last night in the second half was Jack's daughter Lola, all 16 months of her, unleashing a full stomach of vomit all over Jack and herself at the 80th minute. It was probably the most interesting thing that happened, actually.
I think we all felt that way in the 80th minute.
Well, I was going to say, all she was doing was echoing what everyone was thinking and feeling. It was quite impressive.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So anyway, look, unless you have anything more that you can think we need to talk about and commiserate about, Skippy? I think we should
No,
probably wrap
I
it up
think
there.
so Man City next. I'm not looking forward to it. I don't know anyone who is. But obviously we'll do a preview before nearer the time. But I saw them play yesterday. I think it was Bournemouth, wasn't it? Absolutely blown away. Haaland got 4 goals. So what could go wrong? But
Well,
no.
but honestly though, I'd rather us actually have a game at this point in the season now where there's nothing to lose. Um, I'd rather us actually face that kind of opponent because how could you possibly not turn up for a game when you're playing Man City? You just look like an idiot if you don't try because they will put 10 past you.
Yeah.
Pardon me. And so I hope. Pardon me. We try a few different things, as I said. Give
Yeah.
Troy a start. Just create some chaos. Um, I don't know. That means bringing Jimenez on again to start.
Hopefully
But
not. That would be chaos in a completely different. That would be like a self-inflicted chaos. But
yeah,
yeah. But yeah, you
but
never know. I mean, yeah,
I
they
yeah,
could.
I think
They've still got a title to play for, so they're going to be more drilled than we will,
absolutely.
but
But
more to
and
lose.
also they'll be kind of not wanting to be embarrassed either because they'd be falling at the last hurdle because they
Mm.
should easily put Fulham away in Fulham's current form. They should just brush past us, right? In all
Yeah.
fairness, notwithstanding the fact that we're at home. But I'm hoping that this Fulham team actually goes right. We're playing for pride here. Let's see what we can do. Let's have some kind of impact on the end of the season here, and try a few things different. I know it's not Marco's way, but wouldn't you
Mm.
love to see that happen? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it would make it more enjoyable, but hey, we shall see.
yeah. Anyway, let's leave it at that. Thanks very much for stepping up and joining me, even though you left me there for a few anxious moments. But yeah, thanks for stepping in when the others fell by the wayside with their little special projects today.
No, it's all right. It's all good. I mean, we managed to talk about it. It didn't feel healthy talking about it, but
No,
yeah, we
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 keep
we
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 keep
got there.
talking. We keep talking about this as cathartic and some sort of therapy session, but I really feel better. I have to say, I really feel better. Anyway, without any further ado, thanks again, Skibby, for joining me. And until
No
next
worries.
time, come on, you whites.